starting my career, which I wish I didn't have, on April 4, 2004, when Casey was killed, I've traveled around the world. I've met with people. Everywhere I've traveled, people feel oppressed by the U.S. military-industrial complex. In Italy, in England, in Ireland, in countries that you think are Western and allies, the people feel oppressed. Their lands are taken over by U.S. military bases. They feel a moral disgust for what's happening. They are reacting against their governments for being united with the U.S. I've been to countries like Egypt and South Korea that receive some of the largest amounts of U.S. foreign policy aid, and they are the most oppressive countries to their people, just like the United States. And just because we don't have troops marching lockstep down our streets does not mean we don't live in a fascist era. Did I just say something? Was that a double negative? We do live in a fascist empire. And we are subjects and servants of that empire. Well, I'm not a servant of this empire. Like Kathy said in her workshop yesterday on empire, I don't pay my federal taxes. I do not finance the crimes of the Bush administration, the crimes of the United States government. And you know what? I have made significant money since Camp Casey. I've made tens of thousands of dollars every year. They could actually come after me. I actually owe them money. But I wish they would come after me. And that would be the first time we could put this war on trial. And I would say, show me that your policy is humane. Show me that you killed my son. Show me that hundreds, millions of people are dead because of this country. Show me that it is for a noble cause. If you can show me evidence that the U.S. oppresses and kills people for a good reason, I'll pay your taxes. I'll finance this government. But until you can show me that, I won't. And I would rather spend the rest of my life in prison than to finance this. And this is going to be super interesting when I go to Congress. And you know what's even more interesting is I got my first financial statement I have to fill out. And it's really weird. It's like, you know, do you have losses between 10,000 and, you know, $1 million, whatever the figures are? So you don't even have to put exact numbers down. With Nancy Pelosi filled out her financial statement, she is worth between $86 million and -$9 million because of her financial statement. So you know that she's not worth -$9 million. So this is how we are servants and full active participants in the empire. Even though we're anti-war, we're activists, we work for social justice, our tax dollars, our money, is paying for the crimes and the crimes against humanity. And how can you become a war tax resistor without worrying about losing everything? Because that is a concern in the United States. Is that, you know, we have our homes, they can take our homes, they can garnish our wages. Well, there's many ways that you can do that. Some people don't pay half of their taxes because that's the half that goes to the military-industrial complex. Then you pay that money into an escrow account for peace. So I would challenge you to all investigate that. I've been in Latin America, and of course, our country has been oppressing that continent since we've been a country also. Have you heard of the Monroe Doctrine? That says that European countries can't interfere in South America, but we can. And the Roosevelt corollary to that. If we think that those countries are doing something to affect our interests, we can interfere militarily. And this is something that nobody says. We don't have any interests in South America. The only interest we have is if they, like Father Roy said, invite us to have interests. You know, Hugo Chavez has nationalized the oil, but he still has American companies helping him. But that's fair. They pay a fair share. They don't go in and own it. In Iraq, 80% of Iraqi's oil is controlled by international firms by force. Mexico wants to privatize their oil. Pemex, the people of Mexico are rising up against that. They say, that is our oil. It's not the Mexican government's oil, and it's not America's oil. It belongs to the people of Mexico. The last election, when the election was stolen from Obrador, the people of Mexico shut down Mexico City for 5 months. We can't even shut down one street in Washington, D.C. for 2 hours. What the hell's the matter with us? You know, maybe, my kids would always tell me, Mom, hell is not a bad word. They say it in church. So, I just want to tell you that, Father. Now, we have our gas is over $4 a gallon. Maybe, when our economy collapses even further, people get out in the streets. Now, my next panel is going to be on revolution. But that should be the title of this conference, Revolution. Because that's what we need in America. But Martin Luther King Jr. said it has to be a revolution of values. It can't be a revolution. We can't take up arms against the government. What am I going to do? Go and knock them up the side of the head with a frying pan? I don't have AK-47. I don't have rocket-propelled grenades. I don't have what they have, and I doubt if any of you do. So it has to be a revolution of values, and we, the people of America, have to voluntarily give up some of our comfort, because you know what? It's not just our government that are oppressing people around the world. It's us. With our second and third cars, with our houses that are, thousands of square feet bigger than we need, with our waste of natural resources, with our driving our cars and looking the other way when our government, does these wars of aggression, because people have told me. They've looked me straight in the face and said, but we need the oil. You don't park your car. Get a bike. Walk. But I don't want a baby in Iraq being killed so I can drive my car. I don't want, and then the torture issue. People say, but it's keeping us safe. Torture is keeping us safe. I don't want one person tortured to keep me safe. I would rather not be safe. And that's what we have to think. Someone said yesterday, this American exceptionalism, that we are entitled to everything. We're entitled to all the security, and we're entitled to all the prosperity, no matter whom it hurts. And we're not just hurting people in other countries, we're hurting people in our own country. I live in San Francisco, where you can't walk 1 foot without stepping over a homeless person. I've been to Cuba, and being homeless is against the law in Cuba. Everybody has a roof over their head. Everybody has health insurance. Everybody has an education. There might not be the prosperity or the appearance of prosperity, because many of us are just prosperous because there's credit. And, but everybody at least has food and shelter. Everybody has the bare minimum when we have the gross maximum here in America. So we need this revolution desperately. But the one way to get this revolution is we have to wake up our brothers and sisters. Like Father Roy said, educate them. That we are not the greatest country in history. We are one of the evilest empires in history. And when we look back on empire, we have two examples that just scream out at me. The first one is the Roman Empire. We are exactly like the Roman Empire, and we are on that trajectory. Where's the Roman Empire today? They're gone. And then we have a second example, the British Empire. They voluntarily gave up their empire, and they still exist, even though, we have problems with them aligning now with the neocons. So we can give up our empire voluntarily, but like Father Roy said, the people in power aren't going to give it up. We have to take it back from them. Thank you so much.
Well, I just checked with Roy and it's 12:15. So I think if our panelists would be willing to stay with us longer, and if you could count on being able to get your lunch between 1 and 1:30, or how long would you? Anyway, why don't we see what questions and ideas and thoughts you have?
The time for this meeting is until 12:45. Right, so we've got plenty of time.
All right,
May
thank
I
you.
say something about this? The cafeteria is closing at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
It's down the cafeteria wall.
Okay, we're going to go have someone confirm it. But you know what? None of you are chained to your seat if you feel you have to go, just because I said that Catholics leave early doesn't mean that we're going to hold it against you if you have to go.
So if you would be sure to speak loud enough, because it's a big room, and can you call in to say something?
I can't. I've taught for 30 years. If I can just take a minute, because I couldn't afford a fraternity at Michigan State. And I knew an Iranian who taught me that he didn't like his government, the Shah. I knew Nigerians that were celebrating their first year of independence in 1960. 2 years later, when I was drafted after studying foreign policy a little bit in San Francisco, and I might be in San Francisco, Cindy, we'll see. I tried to run for Congress in upstate New York, and we did help an incumbent, or rather somebody replace an incumbent named Jim Walsh. In any event, the expression ignorance was the source. Now, in boot camp, I was very go, go, go. I almost went for Green Berets. All of my eyes, I've got better eyes now since I had cataract surgery. But because I knew the Nigerians in 1963 in boot camp, I said, there aren't any Russians in Vietnam. Could this be a war of independence? So I was stationed at Kimber Army Hospital, Fort Meade, Maryland, where there were a whole bunch of guys with pictures on the wall who were also medics that came back in body bags. They went over after me. Well, I had a choice of becoming a revolutionary or raising a family in 1965 when I got out. I was in the first protest. But I kept my mouth shut through all those protests because I had family responsibilities. school history teacher. In any event, I waited until the Iranian crisis of 1980. My kids were old enough by then, they were junior high. And when they took Americans hostage, nobody asked, why did they take this hostage? Nobody asked about Sadat and the CIA and all of that treatment of the people. So in any event, one more thing. I know 6 or 7 people, including my minister, who's gone on Nick Cardell, Syracuse. And they all went to jail. And the other aspect, they do the lottery thing. I've crossed the line once. And then I had some ideas for Prout, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. But they arrest like 40 or whatever. That was the year I was there. But they only prosecute 10 or 5 or whatever because they don't want the word to get out. And when I read my Irish Catholic stepmother's Catholic Courier Journal, what's his name, Gil Martin, or the high school social studies teacher, it's on page 6. The pulpit, and there was an 83-year-old sister, I believe, that went to jail that year about 4 or 5 years ago. And so the Catholic, I'm a recovering Catholic also. Thank you, Chris. So I don't really have a question except how can I help you in the future? We'll talk about that later.
Garden?
Father Lord Bush, maybe a little louder, Garden. Sorry. Father Lord Bush mentioned that the recent vote was it 222 to 189? Remember you mentioned?
220, 189.
220 to 189. So, there's tremendous focus on impeaching Bush and Cheney, right? I just want to ask you, the three of you, 189 votes, what does it say about our country? What does it say about our culture? And what do we do about that phenomenon? There's all this intense focus on 2 men. What about the other 189? What about all the congressmen and senators who voted to legalize waterboarding? What about all the senators and congressmen who refused to give millions of us health insurance? When is that going to be addressed?
Well, I am addressing the biggest Bush enabler in Congress, Nancy Pelosi. And I think that accountability is off the table for our elected officials because, Hillary or Obama won't say anything about impeachment because they want those imperial powers. It's the corporatists against the anti-corporatists. Everybody in Congress, except for a few exceptions, are corporatists. And it is designed to keep our voices out. I think that a true revolution in this country would be to replace almost 535 members of Congress with populist people candidates. A real revolution like what's happening in South America, like Father Roy said, where people who represent the people and care more about people than corporations and U.S. interests are being replaced. We can do that. We can do that. We need to run candidates in each congressional district that do truly represent the people. And I'm not saying if I get into Congress, because that's really negative. But when I get into Congress, we will introduce legislation to reform the electoral process, to get lobbyists and money out of it, to publicly finance campaigns, to redo the election system for ranked voting to be more of a parliamentary system and not a two-party system. So we just need people to courageously step up and take that step of overthrowing our government peacefully. Because you know what Kennedy said, if you make peaceful change impossible, you make violent revolution probable. So if we want peaceful change, we have to have people from the outside, but we also have to get people on the inside, because nothing is ever going to change until the people rise up against the system.
Roy, did you want to respond to Curtis? Okay. Could I see hands again? How about Jerry Keene there? Yeah, Jerry.
Before I say my comment, I just want to respond quickly to the first man who said because I was a parent, I had to step out. Dolores Huerta raised more than 10 children while organizing the farm workers, mostly as a single parent. How can you be a good parent and not be an activist? And if any of you want a great op-ed piece that has a lot of tools about how you can be a parent and be an activist, because I know it seems to be an obvious conflict, my email is funactivist@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to send you Dolores Huerta's piece. And I hope you can circulate among other parents. But not only can you be a parent, a good parent and activist, but how can you be a good parent and not be an activist? That's number one. Because, well, you and I can talk later. Number two is, what about the 189? In the last workshop, the 189 representatives, actually more than that are enabled, 530, that are enabling this criminality. What came up in the last previous workshop is this is the week they're all home, the Memorial Week coming up. Consider doing a citizen's arrest. Getting a group of people doing a citizen, make sure it's videotaped, send it to YouTube. It'll get on YouTube, and that is great. And then eventually, if enough people click on that, it'll be on NBC and certainly be on MSNBC and Keith Olbermann. But that's a tactic you can, and talk to Dave Swanson about that, because people are organizing about doing that this week. A citizen's arrest, I mean, with handcuffs, so it's visual. Okay, because these guys aren't criminals. These are the enablers, especially the Blue Dog Democrats. What I want to say is, I'd like to ask you, if you have a minute, to look back at what you've done and how you got where you are. I'm doing a workshop on smarter and more fun ways to organize it for. And I think we all can agree that in the battle between the forces of evil and good, there's only one thing that's consistently made a difference, and that's organizing. Whether you're Gandhi or King or Cindy Sheehan or Roy Bourgeois, organizing is what makes the difference. So I'd like to know if you care to share one or two. If you could look back, smarter ways you could have organized, or things that were brilliant, like Cindy. I don't know if you did this on purpose now, but when Cindy did the sit-in at Crawford, well, that alone was, at Crawford, Texas, was brilliant. But picking August, which is the slowest media time of the year, was brilliant. Okay, and so we need to be a lot smarter. We need to be more fun, which you're also going to be talking about.
I think you need to know more about a person before you attack them.
I wasn't attacking you. I'm talking about parents in general that are sitting out. 98% of parents, when you come to these activist events, they're not there. It's the young and the old. So I'm just saying, if you want to share a couple of smarter ways to organize, you had to do it all over again, what you would do, that would be neat. So
First of all,
I can share that at my workshop.
First of all, I don't think spending August in Crawford, Texas was particularly brilliant. Some of you have been there, and you know what I'm talking about. I remember. Yeah, I know. But I think the thing that I have done in all my activism is to listen to my heart. Because the two things that I've done that have been the most, I think, that turned out and will have the most effect are some things that just happen spontaneously. The decision to go to Crawford, Texas, no matter what the right-wingers say, that was not something, we did not have endless conference calls. God, I hate conference calls. We did not have endless meetings and organization. I just said, I'm going. If you want to come with me. Be there. And then everything happened almost miraculously that summer. And that next decision was running for Congress. That was just something that came to me, and I think that there are, whether you believe in the Christian God or whatever, the universe, I think, tends towards good and justice. So if we listen to our hearts, and if we listen to our heroes and saints who have gone before us, I still believe in that we will be guided in the right direction. And another thing, of course, being activists, you have to have lots of beer. And so we advocate that. Doing things differently, I think when I look at the year or so after Crawford, Texas, I let forces drag me instead of being in control of my own destiny, and I think that the anti-war movement lost an incredible amount of momentum between August of '05 and today. We let the major anti-war groups guide the process after that, and their whole strategy was culminating on September 23rd, 2005 in Washington, D.C., where we had hundreds of thousands of people. After that, the energy in the movement dissipated, and then Cindy Sheehan was dragged around the world to the point of exhaustion and illness. So I think that momentum was misspent in August of '05. So, and then I think that we have to teach people reliance on their own communities. That the change, true change, is going to happen locally. You know, have some people working internationally, but true change has to happen locally. We have to have local leaders and local politicians that serve our interests, knowing that whoever gets to be president, that's the person we have the least amount of influence on. So I think our resources must be, as much as we can, spent and used on a local level.
To bring up, I think it's very important. I think that many of us struggle with, we're activists, and as an activist, I've become a great lover of solitude and silence and nature. I've discovered that I need the silence and reflection to keep my anger somehow intact. When I came back from Bolivia years ago, I was really consumed by my anger. And as Cindy says, how can we not be angry? If we really, really are aware of what our country, the empire, has done and continues to do to so many people on Mother Earth. I mean, we've got blood on our hands. Blood on our hands. The anger, however, was consuming me. When I came back from Bolivia in college lectures, students were afraid to ask a question. I was really so filled with anger, it was intimidating, somewhat threatening. And a couple of college professors, and I'm grateful to them, got me aside and simply asked, are you going to continue giving these talks around the country? And I said, yes. And they said, you better do something about your anger. I wanted to empower, to educate, to invite people to be a part of the struggle. And the way I was doing it somehow was not the right way, the way that was going to bring people in. I was really, I think, I was blaming a lot of the students for what was going on in Bolivia, and they didn't know who in the hell General Bonza was. They didn't know where La Paz was, and often I had to start with a map. And what I discovered was that this ignorance being such an enemy in our country, on this issue of the School of the Americas, I realized that I and our core group coming together were very, very ignorant about this issue. And so we had to get to work. But just a couple, what I've learned is that this silence kind of helps me to come to certain truths. And one of the things I've come to is that I cannot let my anger consume me. I must hold on to this thing we call hope and joy. Our movement has gone from just a small group to tens of thousands. And I think what's bringing people into the movement is this hope they feel, this joy, this solidarity, and also they know that our movement is rooted in nonviolence. Early on, when we started to blossom as a movement, we realized we had to draw on the wisdom and the experience of some of the giants, like Mahatma Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Dorothy Day. Nelson Mandela, and many others. But their way was going to be our way, the way of nonviolence. And for many of us, coming perhaps from the context of our faith, nonviolence was at the very core of our faith mandate. And lastly, though, what I've discovered is when we come together, I remember on the nuclear arms race issue, Latin American issues, this issue of the SOA. When you bring people together, there is this collective wisdom that comes up. It's amazing how many meetings we've had. We just, where do we go from here? What do we do? How do we educate? And out of our small meetings or larger meetings, something happens, this truth and collective wisdom starts coming forth. And that has been really at the very core of our movement. People also who did not realize they had skills at organizing or producing documentaries or setting up websites, writing a newsletter, letters to the editor, going to Washington to knock on doors. I tell you, I'd rather be in prison than lobby. It is the most difficult thing I have ever done. And I've always felt grateful to be in prison when we were in Washington lobbying. But it's necessary. It's important work. The letter writing, meeting with the editorial boards. And what I've discovered, there's no one way to work for peace, to struggle for justice, to shut down that military-industrial complex, to stop the war in Iraq. There's no one way. We need a lot of people doing a lot of things. And what we're discovering is that there are things within us that we have not yet tried. We have not yet tried.
You sat far back in the back, I'm myopic, but I think, can we hear from you, sir?
Yes, thank you. I just have a basic question. I belong to a small anti-war tax program in Eugene, Oregon called Taxes for Peace Not War. And our member, Peg Gordon, is not in prison because of crossing that Fort Benning. And I guess my question is that you mentioned that ignorance is one of the key enemies that we have. I think another one is apathy. Because when I try to describe my war tax resistance and other activist activities to my family in Idaho, they're very apathetic. They say, oh, we don't want to hear about this. I'm more concerned about sports, NASCAR, and stuff like that. So how do we get across to people who want to remain ignorant and who want to remain apathetic? Because going to those things or becoming informed about these issues is disturbing to them. So do you have any ideas about that?
Could I just quickly mention, thanks to Mike who went out and double checked, and it is 1:30 for lunch.
Yeah, thank you. I have a story. I went to the Rose Parade this last January 1st, and we were there as an impeachment group. And somebody got us tickets for the grandstand at the Rose Parade, and those are really, desirable seats and blah, 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 whatever. And so since my son was killed, people say, oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I'm like, it is? I don't even know Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know what teams are playing, and I could even care less. So we were at the Rose Parade, and I was sitting by some people. We had all our signs and propaganda carefully concealed to get up in the stands. And across from us, there were people holding up signs that said, Paul, P-A-U-L, obviously Ron Paul. And then there were, this is so funny, a little ways down the road, there was it was 8 people, and each one held, a letter for Kucinich. But we were looking, and they spelled Kucinich wrong. So we care, but we're not always, we're not always great spellers. They got Paul. They spelled Paul right, but they spelled Kucinich wrong. So the people next to me are like, what's Paul? What's Kucinich? I said, Dr. Ron Paul, he's a congressman from Texas. He's running for president. He's a Republican. Really? I'm like, yeah. Well, who's that Kucinich? And I said, Dennis Kucinich, again, congressman from Ohio, Democrat running for president. Seriously? I'm like, yeah. And like, all these people around just like astounded that I was so brilliant. And so during the parade, we got the signal that we were supposed to stand up and hold our impeachment signs. So we did, and people were yelling at us, throwing stuff at us, tearing the signs out of our hands. Sit down, sit down. And I just said next to the lady who didn't know who Paul or Kucinich, didn't even know how to say Kucinich. I said, you're here watching a parade, and you can see the parade. We're not blocking your side. Well, this is not for politics. It's for enjoyment. It's for entertainment. I said, this isn't for politics either, lady. This is because people are dying while you're watching this, multi-million-dollar spectacle. People are dying. And I said, you're not even aware of that. She said, I am too. I said, you don't even know who's running for president. You can't tell me you're aware of people who are dying. And then I have never, ever been so, then people would kind of start figuring out who I am. But we have never been so targeted. We were walking at the end of the parade with a large copy of the preamble to the Constitution. People at the sidewalk cafes were throwing their food at us. And we were at the end of the parade. We didn't stop the parade. We didn't go in the middle of it. And they were desecrating the Constitution. And I know it's not a perfect document, but it's a document we have right now. And it has been desecrated over 230 something years. But it's a document we have at the moment that could be one of the solutions to our problem. And people were screaming at us. This man came and screamed at me. I said, don't you support the Constitution? And the only thing he can come out with, this 80-year-old man, for blacks was that I was a stupid bitch. Don't you support that? Oh, shut up, you stupid bitch. I'm like, get away from me. So how do we combat this? Well, I think in the summer of '05, when people saw a mother whose son was killed and saw the pain of war, some people started to think that what we do hurts people. I think that no matter how hard we work, there's some people that are just not going to get it. And we have to know that there's about 1/5 of this country that just are not going to get it. And just do what we can do and educate the people who are educable. Sir?
I agree with Father, this is awesome, and I agree with this man standing among the rest of us. And that's a great allusion because to nature and limitation and getting back to nature. I was standing outside, and I was right in front of Cindy, and I didn't even know her, and I knew she was going to be speaking. And the person I came with has videos, documentaries, and foreign information series and whatnot. He said, we all had secret consumption, and I mean, everybody here agreed. And my friend said, when I went up to the car, Cindy said, hello, and I actually believe this. Is synchronicity. And he's here, and he's staying with somebody that's, and I think there's other people that are doing something to calm themselves down and some people. Yoga, they're into yoga. And there's other things, other things, we're all into something. And I think I showed somebody my little But we all have some information in some way of approaching this woman if you're asked how to do these things. And so your comment about everybody having something, and we all need to, it needs to be decentralized. And thinking about something about kind of really took the momentum out of the meeting because it was going in a centralized, all these peace groups going in a centralized way instead of everybody thinking from their hearts about where it comes from. And synchronicity is some kind of a natural kind of thing. We all have a reason, a karma for being here, a synchronicity for being here. And it's all happening. And we kind of have to tap into that kind of thing. So I think it's an excellent point.
Let me just follow up, maybe a further. I've been in demonstrations where thousands, a few hundred. I know when we gathered down in Georgia in November, 20,000 strong, it's a little hard to get in dialogue with others, bypassers. It could be a little intimidating. And I discovered that some time ago when we're, especially groups with a lot of signs, it's hard for some people to stop. They're intimidated by our numbers. I really enjoy, I went down some time ago and had this big sign made, and it says, "Bring the troops home." And I just really enjoy, actually, the solitary witness. And I was taught this by Kathy Boylan years ago, a friend at the Catholic Worker House in Washington, D.C., who one day couldn't get a group to go to the Pentagon. And she went alone. Kathy went alone. And she had a petition, and she put a candle there and a flyer. And she shared that experience with me and how she talked to so many people because she was alone. I remember being at the Pentagon with large groups, and they wouldn't stop. They were just, so disciplined. But she talked about how many people she talked with. So I started trying that solitary witness. And I got to tell you, something happens when we are by ourselves. On a street corner, I've done that, as others have. It's hard, I find. People are so busy today to get folks together. And we've got our own schedules often, and what I have found, I've got friends who go on street corners by themselves with a statement on Iraq, bring the troops home, gathering signatures, and it's amazing how many people will stop. And that's my experience right now. When I catch up on my work, when I'm not traveling, I'll get that big sign about 9 feet long. And I have 2 chairs, actually, one for me and those who hopefully will stop. And I'm at the main gate of Fort Benning, home for 30,000 troops, most of them training for Iraq, going for their 3rd and 4th tour now. And I'm amazed. And the polls are like the vast majority entering that base. It's the old thumbs up. So thank you. Some will stop, and I've got the resources there. Some good documentary on Iraq by veterans coming back like Camilo speaking out, and flyers, and many will stop. Why? Because I am alone. And I only say this because it's something that we can do, along with the big demonstrations. I'm a firm believer in what we might call solitary witness, a solitary action. If we haven't tried it, I recommend it. Something happens when we are out there alone making a statement.
Because I
I do think he can relate better to the world than anyone else we've got at this point from my perspective. I want to know how we can get through to the final candidates. I think what happened with Ralph Nader, Michael Moore begged him to step out of Florida. Begged him. He didn't. I will always feel sad the board didn't take it to the Supreme Court. But today is today. And I would like to know how, in your opinion, we may be able to influence. Again, it's not the one-on-one I know, but it's somehow, how can we reach Senator Obama about many things, including rewards for the Americas, and finding ways to help him affirm and come out with things I do think he will
First of all, I'm not going to talk you out of being an Obama supporter. I'm not going to criticize where you place your hope. I think, in my opinion, when you place your hope in any one person, you have to put your eggs in, or your hope in more than one basket. That's for sure. There's a huge misconception about Ralph Nader causing Gore to lose in Florida. More Democrats voted for George Bush in Florida than voted for Ralph Nader. So you can blame the Democrats in Florida, you can blame the Supreme Court, you can blame Al Gore, but please, please, please don't blame Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader is a person of integrity and courage, who runs are principled. He gets a lot of, I know Ralph Nader. He's running as an independent, I'm running as an independent. I know how hard it is once you step outside the system, no matter how much work you've done inside the system and how much people love you while you're working in the system, then you step outside the system and you get a lot of heat. I am someone who has worked a lot with politicians, a lot inside the system. I have met quite extensively with Barack Obama, and I've met with Hillary Clinton, and I've met with John McCain, and I've met with all of them. No matter who becomes president, we the people of America have absolutely no influence on them. Who has influence on them are the military-industrial complex. When you look at Senator Obama's major donors, they're all lobbyist groups or investment bankers. He is for nuclear power, he's for clean coal, his position on Iraq is the same as George Bush's. We'll bring troops out when the conditions on the ground warrant it, and he's not for bringing our troops home. He's for moving our troops over into Pakistan or into Syria or into Iran. And none of the candidates have taken a nuclear option off the table for Iran. And to me, just to say that, they should be hauled off to The Hague and put in prison, threatening using weapons of mass destruction. So what I would say, like I said before, use your resources on a local grassroots level. Put your resources where they are going to make a difference. Because if you do have as much resources as Lockheed Martin or General Dynamics, I want to get to know you because I can use some money in my campaign. But if you don't have it, then you don't have influence. The power brokers are the ones with the money. This is a democracy that has been sold to the highest bidder. And when you get to that level of politics, that's what it's all about. So please use it. We can always hope that if Obama gets in, that he will do the right thing. I have that hope. But I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket because you know what? I know I'm going to get crushed. I know my eggs will get broken if I put all my eggs in the Obama basket.
Cindy, thank you. I just want to point out it's 12:50. Farid has had his hand up for some time. I wonder if we might hear from Farid in a response, and then we probably want to make sure everybody gets to lunch.
We will make it very, very fast
Thank
and
you.
lecture. Before I ask the question, I am a Palestinian, and I'm not just saying because I am or not, but I have one thing to share with Father Boy, the anger. For many, many years in my life, I've been angry, consumed. I've moved in different directions. With Cindy, I share your loss, and I wish you're running for president. The question is very simple. When Father Roy mentioned the consumption and consumed with anger in Bolivia, and you said we have blood on our hands, we do. But then something popped in my head, and when Cindy mentioned we're the most evil empire in the world right now, another thing popped in my head, and they were the same thing. Do we have another smaller empire in the Middle East? Because it's bullying the Middle East of 22 countries, and it's a very minute land compared to the rest of the Middle East. They do go, they walk into anywhere they want, nobody stops them, and or visit Israel, the 51st state of the United States. I would like to know an answer. So go to her, if you can answer.
I just want to affirm what you're saying. I agree exactly with how you express it. And as we know, it's what's going on throughout the Middle East, the enemies that we have there. It's because of this close tie, this close relationship with Israel. That is without a doubt at the root of so much anger
In the Arab
and
world.
so in the Arab world.
Right.
In the Arab world. We were in Iran a few months ago there with Global Exchange. And what I try and say to students, especially when I'm speaking mostly with students around the country, get a passport. Get the hell out of the U.S. And I simply said, why did you go to Iran? I said, because I don't believe what they're saying in our newspapers, what I'm seeing on TV. The starting point is to really be critical. Start with, this is probably not the truth, is what I'm hearing here. And how are we going to get at the truth? And I said the most important thing, the most educational thing you can do right now is get that passport and get on these delegations and go to these countries and find out, go and talk with the people. And this, what they call, I know Global Exchange, citizen diplomacy. And I said to them, going to Iran, it was so difficult to get that visa. We got it at the last moment, but I tell you, that trip was so important. And to take those photos, meet with the people, and what we discovered was the complete opposite of what we were. Those images, of course, and what we were being told in our newspapers. And now some students, I think, are open to that. But others, it's that indifference, that apathy that will always be there, perhaps. But I think what's so important is I think we've got to speak clearly as you have here and get that message out. And for some, it won't penetrate. But for it will be too threatening. But for others, they say yes, yes. And hopefully, the hope is always that I feel, they will start becoming more open. We will become more open. We will go to other countries to learn. We have others who will be our teachers.
I'll just really quick because it is lunchtime, but the Palestinian issue, the Israeli occupation and oppression of Palestine with the help of the U.S. government, I think is one of the most important issues of our time, and it is what drives foreign policy. It's what drives Senator Clinton and Obama and Nancy Pelosi to go to Israel and pledge allegiance to the government of Israel and say, oh yeah, if Iran even looks cross-eyed at you, we'll obliterate them, we'll use nuclear bombs, or whatever. And we forget, we always talk about the people of Iraq, and we talk about the refugees and the people who have been killed, but we don't talk about the people of Afghanistan who have been killed and their country ruined. When I was in Jordan, meeting with Iraqi refugees, I was also privileged to meet with Palestinian refugees. These have been refugees in Palestine since 1949. I mean, not in Palestine, in Jordan, since 1949. Kathy, am I right when I say Palestinians outnumber Jordanians now in Jordan? And they don't have a right of return to their homeland. And that is something that a humane Middle Eastern policy would take into account Palestinian people when we have these discussions. And I know there's a lot of Arab anger towards Israel in the Middle East. I've been there, I've worked with people, and how can we craft a solution where Israel can coexist peacefully? Because Israel, we know, they're not going to give up their state. And how can we encourage peaceful coexistence in the region and not this military aggression? And people in the Middle East believe, and I tend to agree with them, that these wars of aggression in the Middle East are to break up each country in the Middle East so Israel will have an easier, you're nodding your head. So Lebanon, Syria has been destabilized by Iraqi refugees. Jordan has been destabilized by refugees. The threat of military aggression in the other countries is just a threat to break up these countries that have had a hard time uniting in the first place, so Israel will have an easier time dominating the region. So it's something that a humane foreign policy seriously has to address.
Could I just take a moment to thank every member of the audience and for all the people who asked questions. Thank you very much. And very special thanks to Roy and Cindy. I hope we get lots of chances to interact with them and to further their work. That's a privilege for all of us. Thank you.